diner, had left Lily Brooks with aching feet and a pocket full of meager tips that wouldn't even cover tomorrow's medication. She hung her apron in her locker, counting the crumpled bills one more time, hoping for a miracle. $27. Not enough. Never enough. "You heading home, Lily?" asked Marge, the cook, her face lined with concern. "Just need some air first," Lily replied with a forced smile. Outside, the November chill cut through her thin jacket. 3 months ago, the doctor had given her the news: a rare autoimmune disorder that was slowly shutting down her organs. Without the experimental treatment that her insurance refused to cover, she had maybe a year left. At 26, Lily had taken to walking the city at night, trying to absorb every sensation, every moment of being alive. Tonight, her wandering led her to Harrington Bridge, its steel arches gleaming under the city lights. Ethan Carter's corner office on the 47th floor had once been his pride. Now, it was just another reminder of what he'd lost. The nameplate on the door still read CEO, but it was just a matter of time before the board voted him out. His best friend and business partner, Mark, had orchestrated the whole thing, convincing investors to turn against him while simultaneously seducing Ethan's wife. "The papers are ready for your signature, Mr. Carter," his assistant said, placing the divorce documents on his desk. Ethan nodded absently, his gaze fixed on the family photo he hadn't yet removed. His 17-year-old son had sided with his mother, refusing Ethan's calls for weeks. That night, after emptying a bottle of 30-year-old scotch, Ethan found himself walking to Harrington Bridge. It wasn't planned. Nothing in his life was anymore. Lily noticed him immediately. Expensive coat, polished shoes, the unmistakable posture of someone who gave orders rather than took them. He stood at the railing, swaying slightly, looking down at the black water below with unsettling intensity. When he lifted one leg over the railing, Lily's body moved before her mind could catch up. "I'd give anything to have a choice," she called out, her voice carrying in the night air. "But I don't. I'm running out of time." The man, Ethan, turned, his eyes unfocused and red-rimmed. "What?" Lily stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly from her medication, but her gaze steady. "You're about to throw away something I'm fighting desperately to keep." "You don't know anything about me," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I know you have a choice," Lily replied. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing the medical alert bracelet and the bruises from countless IV needles. "I have 6 months, maybe a year if I'm lucky, and every morning I wake up wishing for just one more day." For the first time in months, Ethan Carter hesitated. Lily watched Ethan's face shift from despair to confusion. His foot hovered over the edge, then slowly returned to the bridge's walkway. He gripped the railing, knuckles white against metal, and turned to fully face her. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Just someone who doesn't want to watch another person die tonight," Lily replied, wrapping her thin jacket tighter around herself as the wind picked up. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. It's warm, and the coffee is decent." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, his expensive coat flapping around him like dark wings. "Why would you care? Maybe I need the company as much as you do," she said simply, already turning to walk away. She didn't look back to see if he would follow. The bell over the door jingled as they entered Pete's all-night diner. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the chipped formica tables. It wasn't Rosie's where Lily worked, but it was similar, a place where $2 could buy you coffee and a temporary refuge. They slid into a booth by the window. An elderly waitress with tired eyes brought them coffee without being asked. "Your hands are shaking," Ethan observed after they'd sat in silence for several minutes. Lily looked down at her trembling fingers wrapped around the mug. Side effect of the medication. Some days are worse than others. "What's wrong with you?" he asked bluntly, then winced at his own tactlessness. "Autoimmune disorder, rare one. My body's basically declaring war on itself," Lily said with a practiced casualness that belied the weight of her words. "The treatment I need costs more than I'll make in 10 years on waitress tips." "You're a waitress?" "Double shifts at Rosie's diner most days. Triple when I can handle it." Ethan took a sip of his coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste. "No family. Mom died when I was 16, Dad's somewhere. Haven't heard from him in years." Lily's tone made it clear this wasn't up for discussion. "What about you? What brings a man in a coat that probably costs more than my rent to a bridge in the middle of the night?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Everything I've built is collapsing. My company, my marriage, my relationship with my son." "Tell me," Lily said, not out of politeness, but genuine interest. And surprisingly, he did. Words tumbled out about Mark's betrayal. the board meeting where his so-called friends had voted against him, coming home early to find his wife with his best friend. His son, Jacob's text message, "I don't want to see you anymore." "So that's it? Life gets hard and you just quit?" Lily asked when he'd finished. Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. "You have no idea what it's like to lose everything." "Don't I?" Lily challenged. "I've lost my health, my future, most of my dreams. I work until I can barely stand, just to buy a few more months of existence, but I'm still here." "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan asked, suddenly uncomfortable with her intensity. Lily offered a weak smile. "Because if you're about to throw your life away, maybe you can give a little of it to someone who still wants to fight." Something in her words pierced through Ethan's fog of self-pity. He'd spent his life building wealth, power, control, only to discover none of it guaranteed happiness or loyalty. Yet here was someone with nothing, fighting for every breath. "What would you do if you had my resources?" he asked, more to himself than to her. "Live," she said simply. "Not just exist between shifts, between treatments. Actually live." The silence between them grew heavy with possibility. "Look," Lily finally said, pushing her half-empty mug away. "I didn't bring you here for a charity case pitch. I just couldn't watch you jump." Ethan studied her, the dark circles under her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, the way she carried herself with quiet dignity despite everything. For the first time in months, he felt something stir inside him beyond despair. "My driver can take you home," he offered, already reaching for his phone. Lily shook her head. "I can manage. The subway's still running." "At this hour in your condition?" Ethan frowned. "I've been managing on my own for a long time," she replied with a hint of pride. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you. For tonight." Lily stood, fishing a few crumpled dollars from her pocket for the coffee. "Just promise me something. Wait 1 week before you go back to that bridge, just 1 week." "Why?" "Because the world looks different after a good night's sleep and a sunrise. 1 week, Mr. CEO." As she turned to leave, Ethan called after her. "How will I find you again?" Lily paused at the door. "Rosie's Diner on 22nd Street. I'm there most days." She gave him a final look. "Or maybe you won't come looking. Maybe tonight was enough to remind you that you still have choices. That's more than most of us get." With that, she disappeared into the night, leaving Ethan alone with his cooling coffee and the first glimmer of something that felt dangerously like hope. For 6 days, Ethan Carter wrestled with himself. He returned to his penthouse apartment, ignored calls from his lawyers, and watched the sun rise and set from his balcony. On the morning of the 7th day, he showered, shaved, and put on jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual tailored suit. Rosie's Diner was busier than he expected for a Tuesday afternoon. The bell jingled as he entered, and several patrons glanced up before returning to their meals. Ethan spotted Lily immediately. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, though he noticed how she occasionally steadied herself against a chair when she thought no one was watching. He slid into a booth in her section and waited. When she approached with a coffee pot, her eyes widened in recognition. "You actually came," she said, pouring coffee without asking if he wanted any. "I made a promise. 1 week." Lily nodded toward the window. "And you're still here, so I'm guessing the bridge lost its appeal?" "For now," Ethan admitted. He studied her face, paler than he remembered, dark circles deeper under her eyes. "How are you feeling?" "I'm working, aren't I?" She gestured to the diner with her free hand. "Give me a minute. My break's in 10. Ethan nursed his coffee, watching her work. He'd spent his career evaluating people, and Lily fascinated him. Despite her obvious fatigue, she smiled genuinely at customers, remembered names, joked with the cook. She moved through the world like someone who understood its value. When her break came, she slid into the booth across from him. "You look terrible," he said bluntly. Lily laughed, a surprising sound that transformed her face. "Always the charmer. Had a rough night with the pain. It comes and goes." "I've been thinking about what you said," Ethan began, tracing the rim of his mug, "about giving some of my life to someone who wants to fight." "That wasn't a literal request." "I know," he interrupted, "but I have a proposition for you." Lily's eyes narrowed. "I'm not looking for charity, Mr. Carter." "Ethan," he corrected. "And it's not charity, it's a deal." "What kind of deal?" Ethan hesitated, the words catching in his throat. He wasn't used to feeling helpless. For years, he had solved every problem with power, money, or control. But none of those things had saved his marriage. None of them had brought his son back. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to help someone who doesn't want to be helped. But actually, I can't just walk away." Lily studied him carefully. "And what do you expect in return?" "Nothing," Ethan said, surprising even himself. "Just a reason to believe that saving someone still matters." "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Suspicion colored her voice. Ethan considered his answer carefully. "Because for the first time in months I felt something besides numbness when you talked to me. Because maybe helping you find a reason to live might help me find mine again." Lily's gaze was steady, assessing. "And what do you want in return?" "Your time," he said simply. "Not in a weird way," he added quickly. "Just show me how you see the world, how you keep fighting when everything's stacked against you." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Lily spoke. "If you really want to help, don't throw money at me. Spend time with me instead. Make me feel alive before this illness takes over. That's all." "That's everything," she corrected him. "And I won't take your money, not directly. If you want to help with my treatment, do it through the hospital's financial assistance program. Anonymously." Ethan wanted to argue but recognized the stubborn set of her jaw. "All right, deal." "I have to get back to work," Lily said, glancing at the clock. "But if you're serious, meet me here tomorrow at 4 p.m. when my shift ends." Ethan nodded. "I'll be here." After she returned to work, he left a $100 tip under his coffee cup and walked out. The first thing he did was call his assistant. "Angela, I need you to find out everything you can about autoimmune disorders and experimental treatments. And set up a significant anonymous donation to the financial assistance program at Metro General Hospital." The following day, Ethan arrived 15 minutes early. He watched through the window as Lily handed over her apron to another waitress and stepped outside. "You actually showed up again," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "I said I would." Lily studied him for a moment. "Fair warning. My idea of living isn't exactly luxury tier. Today I'm volunteering at the community garden 3 blocks down. You're welcome to join, but those shoes will get ruined." Ethan looked down at his Italian loafers and smiled. "Lead the way." For the next 3 hours, Ethan Carter, who had never grown so much as a houseplant, found himself on his knees in dirt, planting seedlings alongside neighborhood children and elderly volunteers. Lily moved among them, teaching, encouraging, laughing. No one there knew she was sick. To them, she was just the nice young woman who showed up every Tuesday. At sunset, as they sat on a bench admiring their work, Ethan realized something startling. He hadn't thought about the bridge, his company, or his failed marriage all day. "Why gardening?" he asked. Lily smiled, soil still under her fingernails. "I like being part of something that grows. These plants will still be here next spring, whether I am or not." The simplicity of her words hit him with unexpected force. She was planning both for a future she might see and one she might not. "You will be," Ethan said firmly. "You'll see these bloom." Lily didn't answer, but for the first time in their brief acquaintance, she squeezed his hand. In the weeks that followed, Ethan found himself living 2 lives. By day, he fought remote battles with his board of directors and divorce attorneys, mechanically going through the motions of salvaging what remained of his empire. But afternoons and evenings belonged to Lily's world, a world that operated on entirely different principles than his own. One Tuesday evening, after his 3rd attempt to reach his son had gone straight to voicemail, Ethan arrived at Lily's apartment building, frustrated and distracted. It was a modest 5-story walk-up in a neighborhood that his driver visibly disapproved of. Ethan knocked on her door, expecting their usual outing to some community activity or local spot she wanted to show him. Instead, Lily opened the door with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. "Pack a bag," she announced, her eyes bright with an energy he hadn't seen in days. "Small one, just essentials." Ethan blinked. "For what?" "Road trip," she replied, as if it were obvious. "Just for the weekend. I've cleared it with my doctor, saved up my sick days, and scheduled my treatments around it." "Lily, I have meetings." "Cancel them," she interrupted. "When was the last time you did something without planning it weeks in advance?" Ethan started to object, then stopped himself. "What meetings?" His calendar was increasingly empty as the company distanced itself from him. His son wouldn't talk to him. His soon-to-be ex-wife had already moved in with Mark. "Where are we going?" he asked instead. Lily smiled. "That's the point. We don't know yet." 2 hours later, they were heading north in Ethan's rarely used Range Rover. Lily fiddled with the radio until she found a station playing 80s rock, then rolled down her window despite the chill in the air. "First rule of a proper road trip," she shouted over the wind and music, "is that you need to feel the air change as you drive." By nightfall, they'd crossed into Vermont, stopping at a small inn that looked like something from a postcard. Lily insisted on separate rooms. "I'm not that kind of girl, CEO," but suggested they meet for dinner in the inn's restaurant. When Ethan came downstairs, he found Lily already seated, studying the menu with intense concentration. She'd changed into a simple blue dress that made her eyes seem brighter against her pale skin. "Trying to decide between splurging on the steak or being practical with the chicken," she explained as he sat down. "Get both," Ethan suggested. Lily rolled her eyes. "That's such a rich person solution." "Tonight, you're a rich person," he countered. She considered this, then grinned. "Fine, but tomorrow we're eating at a diner like normal people." Over dinner, Lily produced a wrinkled piece of paper from her purse. "My unofficial bucket list," she explained, smoothing it on the table. "I've been adding to it since the diagnosis." Ethan read through the items. See the ocean at sunrise, eat lobster in Maine, dance in the rain, try ice skating, plant an apple tree, leave $100 tip for a server. "That's what this weekend is about," she explained, watching his expression, "checking off what we can." "These are all achievable," Ethan observed, surprised by the modesty of her dreams. "That's the point," Lily said. "What good is wishing to see Paris if I might not make it past Christmas? I want things I can actually experience." The next morning, they drove to the coast of Maine. Lily stood on a rocky beach, arms outstretched, as the sun broke over the Atlantic. Later, at a small seafood shack, she closed her eyes in delight as she tasted lobster for the first time. "Worth all the hype," she declared, butter dripping down her chin. That evening, when a sudden downpour caught them walking back to the car, Lily grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him into the middle of an empty parking lot. "Dance with me," she demanded, already twirling in the rain. "I don't dance," Ethan protested, rain plastering his expensive shirt to his skin. "Everyone dances," Lily laughed. "Some just need permission." She grabbed his hands and placed them on her waist, then draped her arms around his neck. As they swayed awkwardly in the downpour, Ethan felt something crack open inside him, a feeling he couldn't name rushing through the breach. Later, huddled in the car with the heater blasting, Lily turned to him with rain still dripping from her hair. "What would you do if you had just 1 month to live?" she asked suddenly. Ethan stayed silent, the question hitting too close to home. "I'd love without fear," she said softly after a moment. "That's what scares me most about dying young, all the love I'll never get to give." Their eyes met, and Ethan felt a shift between them, a crossing of some invisible boundary. He reached out, hesitantly brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "Lily, She pressed her fingers gently to his lips. "Not yet," she whispered. "I'm not ready for that conversation." On Sunday evening, as they drove back to the city, Lily slept peacefully in the passenger seat. Ethan glanced over at her, taking in the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the relaxed curve of her mouth, and he realized, with a clarity that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that he was falling in love with a dying woman. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this kind of desperate urgency. The same drive that had built his empire now focused entirely on saving Lily's life. In the weeks following their road trip, he dove into research, calling in favors from contacts at pharmaceutical companies, medical researchers, and specialists around the country. His home office transformed into a war room. Medical journals covered every surface. His computer screen displayed clinical trial data. Ethan worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination, while maintaining his regular schedule with Lily during the days. "Dr. Patel can see you tomorrow at 9 a.m., Ethan told Lily as they walked through Central Park one crisp afternoon. She'd been unusually tired, needing to stop and rest every few minutes. "Who's Dr. Patel?" she asked, lowering herself onto a bench. "One of the leading immunologists in the country. He's flying in from Johns Hopkins specifically to—" "Wait," Lily interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. "You arranged this without asking me." Ethan sat beside her, confused by her reaction. "He's the best, Lily. He's developed a new protocol that might—" "Stop," she held up her hand. "Just stop. I don't understand. Don't you want to get better?" "Of course I do," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "But this isn't what we agreed to. You promised to help me live, not turn my illness into your new corporate takeover project. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it?" Lily challenged. "You've been distracted for days, checking your phone constantly, disappearing for mysterious meetings, and now you're scheduling doctors for me without even asking?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "I'm trying to help you." "I asked for time, Ethan, not a miracle. You can't buy my life the way you buy everything else." Her words stung more than he expected. "That's not fair." "No?" She stood up, unsteady but determined. "Tell me, how much have you spent already?" 50,000. 100,000. Ethan looked away. The actual figure was closer to 500,000. "That's what I thought," Lily said, her voice quieter now. "This isn't about me at all. It's about you needing to fix something because you couldn't fix your marriage or your company or your relationship with your son." "That's not true," Ethan protested, but doubt crept in. Was she right? Was this just another way for him to exert control? "I think I need some space," Lily said finally. "I appreciate what you've been trying to do, but this isn't what I wanted. Lily, please. I'll get an Uber home." She was already pulling out her phone. "Don't follow me, Ethan, I mean it." He watched her walk away, wanting to run after her but respecting her wishes. For 3 days he honored her request for space, though it felt like torture. He tried to distract himself with work, but found himself staring at his phone, willing it to ring. On the 4th day, unable to stand it any longer, he drove to her apartment. When no one answered his knock, he tried calling again. Still nothing. Worry tightened his chest. He was about to leave when Mrs. Abernathy, Lily's elderly neighbor, stepped into the hallway. "If you're looking for Lily, they took her to Metro General last night," she said, concern etching her weathered face. "Poor thing collapsed right in the hallway. If I hadn't heard the thump," Ethan's world narrowed to a pinpoint. He barely remembered thanking the woman before racing to his car. At the hospital, they initially refused to give him information, citing patient privacy. It took all his influence and a sizable donation promised to the hospital wing before a tired-looking doctor finally agreed to speak with him. "Ms. Brooks experienced acute organ inflammation," the doctor explained in a low voice. "Her condition has accelerated faster than we anticipated." "Is she—" Ethan couldn't finish the question. "Stable for now. We've increased her immunosuppressants, but this is concerning. The disease is progressing despite our current treatment plan." "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated. "She's resting, and she specifically asked not to have visitors." Ethan felt like he'd been punched. "Did she mention me by name?" "Yes, Mr. Carter, she did." Defeated, Ethan sat in the hospital waiting room for hours, hoping Lily would change her mind. When his phone rang, he answered immediately, but it was only his assistant with news about the company. He hung up without responding. As evening approached, a nurse took pity on him. "Room 412, she whispered as she passed. "She's awake now." Ethan found Lily propped up in bed, looking smaller than he remembered. IV lines snaked from her arms, and the monitors beside her beeped steadily. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "I told them no visitors," she said, but there was no real anger in her voice. "Since when do I follow rules?" Ethan attempted a smile as he approached her bedside. "You look terrible," she observed. "So do you." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. Always the charmer. Ethan sat carefully on the edge of the bed, taking her hand in his. "I'm sorry, Lily. You were right. I was trying to control the situation because that's all I know how to do." "I know," she said softly, "and I'm sorry I pushed you away. I was scared." "Of what?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Of hoping. Hope is dangerous when you're dying, Ethan." The doctor's words echoed in his mind. "The disease is progressing despite our current treatment plan." "There's something they're not telling me, isn't there?" Lily asked, reading his expression. Ethan considered lying, then remembered their promise of honesty. "The treatment isn't working as well as they hoped." Lily nodded slowly, absorbing this. "How long?" "They don't know exactly, but less than we thought," she finished for him. They sat in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling around them. "There's an experimental treatment," Ethan finally said. "In Boston. It's not a guaranteed cure, but it's shown promise in similar cases." Lily closed her eyes. "More false hope?" "No," Ethan insisted, squeezing her hand. "Real hope. A fighting chance." "I'm tired of fighting," she whispered. Ethan leaned closer, his voice intense. "Let me fight for you, the way you fought for me that night on the bridge." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she opened her eyes to meet his gaze. "Why?" "Because I love you," he said simply. "And I'm not ready to say goodbye." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of medical forms, hurried consultations and rushed arrangements. Ethan worked tirelessly, making calls from Lily's hospital room, only stepping out when she needed to rest. His assistant handled the logistics, arranging for a private medical transport to Boston, securing accommodations near the treatment center, and coordinating with the specialists who would oversee Lily's care. "You're really doing this?" Lily asked during a moment of clarity between pain medications. "Uprooting your life for what might be a lost cause?" Ethan paused from reviewing the transport schedule on his tablet. I'm not uprooting anything worth keeping. The flight to Boston was tense. Lily's condition had deteriorated enough that a medical team accompanied them on Ethan's private jet, monitoring her vitals throughout the journey. She slept most of the way, her hand loosely clasped in Ethan's, while he stared out the window silently bargaining with whatever forces might be listening. Boston General Hospital's experimental treatment wing looked more like a research facility than a place of healing. Dr. Eleanor Chen, the lead researcher, met them upon arrival, her expression professionally neutral as she assessed Lily. The treatment protocol is aggressive, Dr. Chen explained as they settled Lily into her new room. The first phase targets the autoimmune response directly. It's uncomfortable and the side effects can be severe. Worse than dying? Lily asked weakly from the bed. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. There are no guarantees, Ms. Brooks, but we've seen promising results in patients with similar profiles. Just tell me what to do, Lily said. The first week was hell. The treatment ravaged Lily's already weakened body, leaving her alternately feverish and chilled, nauseous and unable to eat. Ethan didn't leave her side except when forced to by medical staff. He slept in the uncomfortable recliner beside her bed, waking instantly whenever she stirred. You don't have to stay, Lily told him during a rare moment of lucidity. This isn't what you signed up for. Ethan looked up from the book he'd been reading aloud to her. Actually, it is exactly what I signed up for. Watching someone throw up every hour. Being with you, through whatever comes. By the second week, Lily had stabilized enough to begin the next phase of treatment. The mornings were dedicated to intensive therapy, while afternoons allowed for brief periods of normalcy. Ethan brought board games, movies, books, anything to distract her from the constant medical intrusions. One evening, as they played a particularly competitive game of gin rummy, Lily suddenly asked, "Have you heard from your son?" Ethan's hand stilled over the cards. "How did you know I've been trying to reach him?" "I saw you sending texts, and your face whenever your phone rings." She shrugged. "I recognize hope when I see it." Ethan set down his cards. "Jacob still won't speak to me. His mother has," he hesitated, "painted a particular picture of the situation. Have you told him where you are, what you're doing?" "No." Ethan shook his head. "This isn't about earning points or sympathy." Lily reached across the small table to touch his hand. "Sometimes people need to see who we really are, not who they think we are." The third week brought a subtle shift. The constant pain that had become Lily's companion began to ease. Her blood work showed promising changes. Dr. Chen remained cautiously optimistic. "Her body is responding to the treatment," she told Ethan during one of their daily consultations. "But we need to be realistic. This isn't a cure. It's a management strategy at best." "But she's improving," Ethan pressed. "For now," Dr. Chen agreed carefully. "Ms. Brooks's case is instructive. We're learning from her response." As Lily's strength gradually returned, Ethan arranged for short outings, wheelchair trips to the hospital garden, a visit to the aquarium across the street, even a brief excursion to a nearby cafe when her doctors approved. These small tastes of normal life became treasures, moments hoarded against the uncertainty that still loomed before them. 1 month stretched into 2, then 3. Winter settled over Boston, turning the hospital grounds into a snow-covered landscape that Lily admired from her window. The treatment continued with adjustments based on her response. Some days were better than others, but the downward trajectory of her illness had undeniably slowed. "You should go back to New York," Lily told Ethan one evening as they shared Thai food smuggled in by a sympathetic nurse. "Just for a few days. Check on your company. See your lawyers." "The company's fine without me," Ethan replied, though they both knew this wasn't entirely true. He'd been managing things remotely, but his prolonged absence had accelerated his removal from daily operations. "At least call Jacob," Lily insisted. "It's almost Christmas." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I'll try." Again. When he stepped into the hallway to make the call, he was certain it would go to voicemail as it had dozens of times before. To his shock, Jacob answered. "Dad?" His son's voice, deeper than Ethan remembered, filled him with unexpected emotion. "Jacob, thank you for picking up. Mom said you disappeared. The company's saying you had some kind of breakdown." Ethan leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. "I'm in Boston, at Boston General Hospital." "Are you sick?" Alarm colored Jacob's voice. "No, not me. Someone important to me is undergoing treatment here." A long pause followed. "The woman from the diner? Mum found out you've been paying for some waitress's medical treatment." Ethan felt a flare of anger at the dismissive tone. Her name is Lily, and yes, I'm helping her. She's very ill. Why? What is she to you? Ethan looked through the doorway at Lily, who was attempting to balance a fortune cookie on her nose, laughing softly to herself. She saved my life, he said simply. Another stretch of silence. There was a long pause. Mum told me you just disappeared. That you abandoned everything for some stranger. Ethan closed his eyes. I didn't disappear, Jacob. I just found something worth staying for. Another pause, then a sigh. I saw an article online about a businessman who made a huge anonymous donation to Metro General Hospital. It didn't take much to figure out it was you. Ethan remained silent, letting his son process his own conclusions. I don't get it, Jacob admitted. Why her? Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. Because she saved my life before I had a chance to save hers. This time when Jacob spoke, there was something softer in his tone. Maybe I'll come see you. When he returned to Lily's room, she took one look at his face and smiled. He answered. Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. See, Lily said softly, hope isn't always dangerous. As Christmas approached, Lily endured another round of intensive treatments. The months of therapy had taken their toll. Her once auburn hair had thinned dramatically, and her body remained frailer than before. But her eyes had regained their spark, and her laugh came more easily now. The doctors called them in for a meeting the day before Christmas Eve. Ethan held Lily's hand tightly as Dr. Chen reviewed the latest test results. The disease has stabilized, she announced, allowing herself a small smile. It's not gone, and you'll need ongoing treatment. But we've halted the progression. Lily turned to Ethan, tears filling her eyes. That's all I ever wanted, she whispered. Time. Spring came to Boston, breathing new life into the city after the long winter. Cherry blossoms dotted the hospital grounds where Lily took her daily walks, now without assistance. Her treatment had shifted to a maintenance protocol, weekly infusions and daily medications that kept her disease at bay, not cured, but controlled. Ethan had rented a small apartment near the hospital, transforming the second bedroom into a home office where he managed what remained of his business interests. The corporate takeover had proceeded in his absence, but with Jacob's unexpected help, Ethan had salvaged enough to start something new when the time was right. You're brooding again, Lily observed as she entered the apartment, tossing her keys into the bowl by the door. She had just returned from her weekly treatment, her cheeks flushed with color that had been absent for so long. Not brooding, planning, Ethan corrected, closing his laptop. How was today? The usual. Nurses gossiping about Dr. Peterson's divorce, me getting pumped full of expensive drugs, terrible daytime TV. She flopped onto the couch beside him. Dr. Chen wants to see us tomorrow, both of us. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Did she say why? Nope, just that it's important. Lily's casual tone belied the worry in her eyes. They both knew that in their world, unexpected meetings rarely brought good news. That night, neither slept well. Ethan lay awake, listening to Lily's breathing beside him, cataloguing the improvements of recent months. Her increased energy, the way she could climb stairs without pausing, how her appetite had returned. He refused to believe they were about to lose ground. Dr. Chen's office was bright with morning sunlight. She greeted them with her usual reserved smile, gesturing for them to sit. I've been reviewing Lily's case with colleagues across the country, she began without preamble. Your response to treatment has been remarkable, more successful than we dared hope. Lily gripped Ethan's hand. But maintaining this regimen indefinitely isn't practical. The protocol was designed as an intervention, not a permanent solution. What are you saying? Ethan asked, his voice tight. Doctor, Chen slid a folder across her desk. We've been invited to transition your care to a new long-term study at Mayo Clinic. It's focused specifically on patients like Lily, who've responded well to initial treatment but need ongoing management. Lily opened the folder cautiously. Minnesota. You want us to move to Minnesota. The program runs for 2 years, with the possibility of extension. They're developing an oral medication that could replace the infusions. If successful, it would mean a normal life, Lily finished quietly. Or closer to one. When would this start? Ethan asked. 2 months. Time enough to make arrangements. Dr. Chen looked between them. I know it's another upheaval, but this is an opportunity few patients receive. After the meeting, they walked silently through the hospital garden, processing the news. Spring flowers had pushed through the soil, crocuses, daffodils, early tulips, painting the landscape with color after months of winter gray. Minnesota, Lily finally said, testing the word. I've never been there. It's supposed to be beautiful. Lakes everywhere. Cold, though. We'd buy you a proper coat. Ethan smiled faintly. Actually, we'd buy you an entire winter wardrobe. Lily stopped walking, turning to face him. Ethan, you've already put your life on hold for months. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, he interrupted gently. I'm offering. What about your company? Your divorce proceedings? Jacob? Ethan scrolled through the emails piling up in his inbox. His legal team wanted him to fight. His board members were split. Half wanted him out, half wanted him to return and stabilize things. The company wasn't truly gone, not yet. If he wanted, he could claw his way back. He could spend months in courtrooms and boardrooms, proving he still had a place there. Or he could walk away, leave the empire to the vultures, start over on his own terms. He looked at the hospital bed, at Lily's slow, steady breathing. And for the first time, the choice was easy. Lily searched his face. I don't want to be your project or your redemption story. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what this is anymore, she admitted. When we met, I was dying and you were ready to jump off a bridge. Everything since then has been extraordinary, but also suspended somehow, like we've been living in a bubble, and you're afraid what happens when the bubble pops. Lily nodded. What if, once life becomes more normal, you realize this whole thing was just a temporary madness? Ethan finished. It wasn't. It isn't. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Not velvet, not a jewelry box, but something hand-carved with simple elegance. I had this made by that artisan we met in Vermont, he explained, opening it to reveal a simple key. It's for a cottage on Lake Superior. Nothing fancy, just a small place with a garden and a view of the water. Near enough to Mayo for your treatments, but not institutional. Lily stared at the key, speechless. I'm not proposing marriage, Ethan continued quickly. I'm proposing a future, whatever shape that takes, however long it lasts. You bought a house without telling me? Lily found her voice, though it wavered. I put a deposit on it, he corrected. Refundable. If you hate the idea, we'll find somewhere else, or you can go to Minnesota alone if that's what you want. I'm not trying to control your choices, Lily. I'm trying to show you that I'm all in, whatever you decide. Tears filled her eyes. I can't promise you forever. The doctors still don't know if... I don't need forever, Ethan interrupted softly. I just need now, with you. Lily took the key, running her finger along its teeth. No one's ever fought for me the way you have. You fought for me first, he reminded her, on that bridge. We saved each other, I think. A week before they were scheduled to leave for Minnesota, Ethan received an unexpected call from his former company. The new CEO, ironically not Mark, but a woman Ethan had mentored years before, offered him a consulting position. Remote work, flexible hours, focused on the innovative projects he'd always loved best. Seems the universe is conspiring to make this work, Lily commented when he told her the news. The morning of their departure, Jacob helped load the last of their belongings into the moving truck. He'd grown closer to both of them during his visits, initially wary of Lily but eventually won over by her unflinching honesty and dark humor. You'll call when you get there? He asked, hugging his father. Of course, and you'll visit during spring break? Try and stop me. Jacob turned to Lily. Take care of him, okay? He's kind of a mess without supervision. Lily laughed, the sound bright in the morning air. I've noticed. They drove out of Boston as the city was waking up, heading west toward a future neither of them had imagined a year before. Halfway to their destination, Lily reached over and took Ethan's hand. I have an idea, she said suddenly. A detour. 2 hours later, they stood on Harrington Bridge in the midday sun, looking down at the spot where they'd first met. The water below sparkled with reflected light, nothing like the dark abyss it had seemed that night. Why did you bring us here? Ethan asked. Lily leaned against the railing, her face tilted toward the sky. I used to be afraid of dying, she admitted. Now, I just want to live every second I have. Ethan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, the warmth of her body against his. You saved my life that night, he whispered. I'll spend the rest of mine making sure you know it was worth it. Hand in hand, they walked back to the car and continued west toward Minnesota, toward whatever time they had left. A month, a year, decades maybe. No fairy tale, no promises of forever. Just two souls who chose to fight for every moment they had left. 1 year to the day after they'd stood on Harrington Bridge, Ethan and Lily returned to the same spot. The Minnesota winter had been brutal, exactly as predicted, but spring had come early this year, bringing with it a tentative warmth that matched their cautious optimism. The cottage on Lake Superior had become home more quickly than either expected. Lily had painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow and planted wildflowers along the stone path leading to the water. Ethan had taken to woodworking, creating simple furniture for their porch overlooking the lake. In the evenings they would sit there, wrapped in blankets, watching the sun set over the water. The Mayo Clinic's experimental program had proven promising. Lily's oral medication regimen had stabilized her condition further, reducing her hospital visits to monthly checkups rather than weekly infusions. Her body was learning to coexist with the disease rather than constantly fighting it. "Shall we?" Ethan asked, offering his arm as they approached the bridge. Lily nodded, linking her arm through his. She moved with more confidence now, though she still tired more easily than she would admit. Her hair had grown back thicker than before, curling around her face in a way that made her look younger, less worn by illness. They walked to the center of the bridge and stopped, leaning against the railing just as they had 1 year ago. The city sprawled around them, unchanged, yet completely different through their new perspective. "Remember what I asked you here last time?" Lily said, watching a boat make its way down the river below. "You asked what I would do if I had 1 month to live," Ethan replied. "And you never answered," she reminded him with a gentle nudge to his ribs. Ethan smiled. "I think I was too shocked by the realization that I was falling in love with you. And now? What would your answer be now?" He considered the question, looking out over the city where his empire had risen and fallen, where his marriage had dissolved, where his old life had ended, and his new one had begun. "I wouldn't do anything differently than what we're doing now," he said finally, "except maybe worry less about the future and focus more on each day." Lily nodded, satisfaction in her expression. "That's a good answer. What about you? Has your answer changed?" "I said I'd love without fear," she recalled, "and I've tried, but I've realized something this year." "What's that?" "Fear isn't always the enemy." She turned to face him fully. "Sometimes fear is just love with its back against the wall, fighting to protect what matters." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the river flow beneath the bridge. So much had changed in a year. Jacob was thriving in his first year of college, just a 3-hour drive from their cottage. He visited monthly, gradually rebuilding his relationship with his father and forming an unexpected friendship with Lily, who helped him navigate his engineering coursework. Ethan's remote consulting work had evolved into a small startup focused on sustainable technology, something he'd always wanted to pursue but had never found the time for in his previous life. Working from their lakeside home gave him the flexibility to accompany Lily to her appointments and still build something meaningful. "I got a call from Dr. Chen yesterday," Lily said suddenly. She didn't want to say anything until she was sure, but the latest blood work shows something interesting. Ethan tensed beside her. "Interesting good or interesting bad?" "Good, I think. The markers they use to track my disease activity have decreased significantly. Not just stabilized, actually improved." "What does that mean?" Lily shrugged, trying to appear casual, though her eyes betrayed her excitement. She doesn't want to use the word remission yet, but she did say that if this trend continues, they might be able to reduce my medication further. Ethan pulled her into a tight embrace, careful not to squeeze too hard. "That's wonderful news." "It's not a cure," Lily reminded him, the caution they'd both learned to live with, evident in her voice. "Just another step." "Every step counts," he replied. As the evening settled around them, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Lily reached for Ethan's hand. "There's something else I haven't told you." "More news from Dr. Chen?" "No." She shook her head, suddenly nervous. "I've been thinking about the cottage, about making it more permanent." Ethan watched her carefully. "What does more permanent mean?" "It means I'm tired of separate bedrooms for when Jacob visits. Tired of explaining that we're just roommates to the neighbors. Tired of not having a word for what we are to each other." Lily took a deep breath, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee as they sat on their porch, the lake stretching out before them. "You know what's funny?" she mused. "I always thought I'd die before I had the chance to find someone who made me feel like this." Ethan turned to her, intrigued. "Like what?" She smiled, but there was something vulnerable in her expression. "Like I belong somewhere, like I'm not just surviving but actually living." Ethan reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let's make it official. Let's build something real together." She studied him for a long moment, then smirked. "Are you proposing, Mr. Carter?" "That depends. Are you saying yes, Ms. Brooks?" He cupped her face in his hands. "And absolutely perfect. So that's a yes. That's a yes." They sealed the promise with a kiss as the last light faded from the sky. No grand gestures, no diamond rings or elaborate plans, just the simple truth of two people who had found each other at their lowest points and chosen to climb upward together. As they walked back to their rental car, arms wrapped around each other against the evening chill, Lily paused for one last look at the bridge. "Thank you," she whispered. "For saying yes?" Ethan asked. "For everything. For showing me that sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another." They drove away from the bridge, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been that night a year ago, a dying woman and a broken man, both standing at the edge of oblivion. Ahead lay the long drive back to Minnesota, to their cottage by the lake, to whatever future they would build together, a future that for the first time felt not just possible, but probable. No fairy tale ending, no guaranteed happily ever after, just the commitment to face whatever came next, whether it was days or decades, side by side. Two souls who had taught each other that survival wasn't just about breathing, but about finding reasons to breathe that made each breath worthwhile. Have you ever dreamed of finding hope in life's darkest moments? The story of Ethan and Lily reminds us that sometimes our greatest challenges can transform into our deepest new beginnings. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that tomorrow can be better than today, and leave a like if you also believe in the power of second chances. We're curious to know where you're watching this story of resilience and unlikely love from. Which country are you following Ethan and Lily's journey from? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart and make us reflect on the true meaning of living each moment.